So operationally here in Australia, do you foresee any problems in terms of how the Navy will cope with these changes? As I understand it, crews will need to be navigating 3 different designs of submarines over the next couple of decades. Do we have the crews with the ability to do that? Does that pose a real challenge in terms of upskilling our people?
Yes, it does. And look, what I would argue, this is a very high trusting relationship. You know, the United States is sharing some of their most sensitive ever military technology and capability with Australia. It's a very high risk in the way that the project's been laid out. Now, what we're doing is we're going for speed to capability here. So for most critics and pundits, no one would have guessed that we could have, by 2033, a nuclear submarine operating out of the Royal Australian Navy, as we're seeing with the Virginia class that's being put forward. But it's also very high risk. As you said, there is the potential here for us at one stage to be operating all 3 classes of submarines, the current Collins class, the interim Virginias and the new AUKUS boats. But if you look at the detail of this program, it's actually got some inherent flexibility in it and some inbuilt decision points that will be many, many years down the track. So the life of type extensions of our current Collins class submarines may not have to be done for all 6 boats. It might only have to be done for 4. We're buying 3 Virginia class, but an option of 2 more. So if the SSN AUKUS builds are delayed in any way, or we want to bring off the Collins class and retire them early, we have the option there of purchasing an additional 2 boats. So I think there is a clear pathway where we'll probably be operating Collins class and the Virginias, and then the Virginias and the AUKUS boats, so probably only 2. And of course, between the Virginia boat and the AUKUS boat will be a lot of commonality in weapon systems, in combat systems, and of course in reactors and technology. So I think the detail here is good, but what you've highlighted is probably the greatest risk of this project and the greatest risk for all 3 countries, and that is the workforce risk. At the moment, the Navy is really struggling to maintain enough submariners to operate the Collins-class submarines. And from an defence industrial point of view, this is going to require a massive uplift in all 3 countries. Now, what was announced today, the US will invest well over $4 or $5 billion into their submarine program for the maintenance and sustainment of their current fleet and to uplift some of their industrial capability. Rishi Sunak indicated there'll be a multi-billion-pound investment in their own shipyards. But some of those are still investments, inquiries that are underway. We don't know the absolute outcome of that. And of course, all 3 countries are struggling with people and personnel. And this is for Australia and for the United States and the United Kingdom, not just a submarine and defence industry problem, but a workforce problem in our economy more generally. Now, we can't solve this problem for submarines by simply opening up the borders and bringing in more skilled migrants. There are very high security requirements for people working in this area. But what we might be able to do is open up to the economy more migrants to fill other jobs, to transfer Australians into these very high-tech, very high-skilled required jobs. But I'd have to say the number one risk to this program, both in the short, medium and the long term, will be, do we have enough workforce, both in the Navy in uniform, but also in defence industry to realise this capability plan?
Peter Dean, always appreciate your insights as always. Thank you so much for joining us live there in Canberra.
Pleasure to be here.